Hello and welcome to Girl Awakening YouTube. I'm Jo Hendy.
And I'm Amanda Parker. Enjoy this episode of Girl Awakening in all of its vulnerable sacredness.
And remember to subscribe and share.
Good morning, Jo.
Oh, yeah, look at you going jumping in there. Oh, it's full moon.
Yeah, I
No,
just feel so
kidding.
energized with this energy that's around at the moment.
Yeah.
And we've been feeling so, the word's been electric, just feeling that energy, that pulsating energy that's around.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. And the clearing out. I don't know how you're going, but I feel like my body has been purging for the last couple of weeks. I've been, I've been feeling it. So there's definitely something in the air.
Yeah, and it's like the more resistance you have, the harder it gets, and that just that true sense of the word, that beautiful word, surrendering, and feeling into it and wanting to explore it, be open to it, and allowing it to shift by loving it,
Absolutely,
not fighting it
and
or judging yourself on it.
Our guest today is the perfect girl to have on to talk about all of this later on, after we talk about her awakening. But we have another beautiful guest today, Emma Cormack. She's an intuitive astrologer and a women's mentor. Now, usually this is where I go in and talk about Emma, but she's actually communicated some stuff to us this morning, and we just thought it needs to come from her, because the way that she says it is so authentic and so resonating that it has that effect to wake people up when it comes from her.
The true, like you mentioned before, that the power of the words, the energy is really there, coming out of her intentions are really there so clearly.
Welcome, Emma. Welcome to Girl Awakening.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so grateful to be able to share and spread this beautiful message and share my awakening with you all.
Oh, yeah.
And bring Daisy along for the ride.
Yes,
wow, welcome Daisy.
That's just so beautiful that we're both being there.
If only people on the podcast could see.
So beautiful.
Well, they will on the YouTube.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing.
Daisy obviously is here for quite an important purpose. She's starting very young.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? It's no coincidence either. Maybe Daisy had a big play in Mum's awakening.
100% she did, and we'll definitely get into that.
So, do you want to share with the viewers and with the listeners, about your what you do first?
Yeah. So my mission now is to really just help women to stop playing small. Like, for too long, I had been guilty of, really dulling myself down and not actually being my true, authentic self expressed. And I think that's, obviously through all the layers of deconditioning to try and get to that point. But I realized how much we'd actually, and, this is not just the same for me. I know there's plenty of other women and I can see their potential, but they're, got all these resistance and conditions as to why they're not stepping into that power and sharing that. And so I feel like my mission now is to be like, fuck that. You have to step into your power. The time is now. And it's just been really amazing with the women that I've been working with, and just seeing them all of a sudden just step into that power. And it's like, and I know people, I've sort of had this journey of go first. And then, people are going to see that and be inspired and empowered to then also own that about themselves, because they're like, well, she's done it, so why can't I? Absolutely. And so that for me, she's Daisy grabbing my mouth. She's very good at that. That for me is just I really just came to this realization of what is life if I'm literally just going to keep pulling myself and just playing small when I have all these grand dreams and all these visions and desires, and I'm not actually stepping into that. So now I've just kind of gone, well, fuck it all, and I'm here and I'm stepping up and being that and showing others they can too.
Yeah. Oh, I so feel that, and I resonate with that, and I feel like that's the only way out now.
Yeah, definitely.
You've only got yourself, really, haven't you?
100%. And I think that's where now, obviously, having the birth of Daisy, and each sort of layer has slowly started to peel away. And I think my children have definitely been part of my awakenings. And it's just each I feel like as you go through the birth, like you're rebirthed yourself. And I feel I'm coming out of this point now, like Daisy's 7 months. And it's like this now, I've just had such a big, like mind blown, awakened state to be like, what have I been doing? And why am I not been sharing and stepping into this? And, you know, just putting myself in this little box to keep safe. But for what reason? Like, what am I hiding from? Like,
it's mind blowing, isn't it, really, when you think like our life to this point now, like we've been living life, obviously, but now as you just said, like the awakening point is just so clear around that space of like,
so true.
It's
like something, it's like
into
someone,
ourselves like nothing else.
Yeah, it's like someone's came along and lifted the lid off so many people, not just women in general, but so many people. It's like a lid's been lifted. That's the feeling. And people have gone, and kind of taken a nice big deep breath and went, wow,
I can see the sky.
Look what's available.
Yeah. And it's just amazing to witness that and experience that as well, because I know, like, obviously from an astrological perspective, this year is literally about lifting the veil, and people who aren't authentic, you're going to see through that, and we're going to see through the bullshit that people have been putting up this facade. So it's kind of like, if you're not stepping into your sovereignty and your authenticity, people are going to see through it. And when you do step into that, people are going to notice that too, and they're going to see like, wow, this person is really fucking authentic and genuine. And they're really holding their own and stepping into it.
Oh yeah, we both just got goosebumps then, and I think that's the bullshit meter is just so strong now. Like people, like before when people felt mistrust or suspicion, like now that it's not about that. It's shifting into full trust. It's letting go of suspicion, which is really just a distraction and a lie. Because we're not in touch with our intuition. It's a distraction from our true intuition. But the bullshit meter is so powerful.
Wow. Should we jump?
I think because we had our first question, which is always the one, but I feel like because of what you have to share, like where you're standing now so powerfully, is I'd like to ask, we'd like to ask you, what was your life like before your awakening, Emma?
So I guess before this, obviously I've had many awakenings along my journey so far. Where would you like me to start? As in like just this initial, say from Daisy, or like even fast forward?
Go back
in the beginning when the light wasn't turned on.
So when the light wasn't turned on, I'm going to say, it was my first awakening was when I had an auntie who was really close to me, and she died very suddenly of cancer. And that I was 20 at the time, 20 at the time. No, 21, sorry, I was 21. And I felt like that moment, everything was kind of just put into place with me, as if like all of a sudden life just really flashed before my eyes and was like, fuck, you've only really got one life and it can be taken away so quickly. And that for me was like a real catalyst of like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? So this young 21-year-old, I was with this boy who I'd been with for 7 years. We were high school sweethearts, and we had our life all mapped out. We're going to get engaged, have the family, do all the things. But a part of me just felt like I was settling, I guess. Like I knew there was more. Like I wanted to travel, I wanted to see the world, I wanted to explore so much more. And then as that catalyst of my auntie dying very suddenly, I was like, fuck, I've got to do it. And so I gave him the ultimatum and was like, I want to move to the Gold Coast. Do you want to come with me, or are we parting ways? Like, what's happening here? And so he decided to stay in our little hometown, and then I just took off, knew no one really. My cousin was like, I've got a share house.
Sounds familiar.
My cousin was like, I've got a share house, our housemate is moving out and there'd be a room available, it's this much a week. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really have any money. I've got maybe $1,000, if that. I was still studying at uni, but I was able to do it by correspondence. And I was like, oh, what have I got to lose? So I literally toddled up there, had no job, no nothing, and was just like, I'll make it work. So I get there, and then, I was looking for hospitality work at the time, got a perfect little job that suited my needs, and then basically went into that whole like party scene, really just kind of let loose, was feeling like I was kind of boxed in. I grew up in the Blue Mountains, so I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's very much like a small little community of like everyone knows everyone kind of, nothing really changes, it's all the same.
It's an incredible place in the world, though, isn't it? Like,
so beautiful. And I think I took that for granted growing up there, for sure. Like,
as we do.
I'm a God, I didn't even do half the, beautiful walks and things like that. And it was just amazing, hindsight now, if I go back and visit and it's like, oh, wow, I was so fortunate and lucky. But at the time I couldn't see it. I'm like, I'm in this little small town and I'm feeling real cramped and it's not,
As she walks through the path amongst the trees and the native wildflowers that only grow there.
I know, it's wild. And then, so I moved up to the Gold Coast, and then I feel like that year was my kind of like fucking YOLO year, like let loose, had been single for the first time in my life. Like, I'm sure you can imagine the boys, the partying, the drugs, the rock and roll, all of the things, It was
GC experience.
So
friends.
I reckon we would have been. And so I guess, it was wonderful for me, and I had such great learnings and such independence for the first time in my life, and kind of this little flower just being like, oh my God, there's so much more to the world than I was led to believe. And so obviously the universe, though, decided that path was going to probably lead to be quite destructive. So it radically intervened, and I ended up meeting we're not married yet, my fiance. Yeah. So I ended up meeting my fiance. I was 22 at the time. And, I was doing all the things like Tinder dating, kind of just playing the fields and not really ready to settle. Yeah. But, he'd piqued my interest, and, we were casually dating for a while. And then we were like, okay, we'll get together. So we were together. And then 6 months into our relationship, I fell pregnant.
Wow. The universe said, we've got to make this stick.
Wow.
Yeah. And, so during that time, I kind of guess I'd sort of already had this awakening of like, there's something more here. Like, I've got this deeper trust in the universe. Like, I know that, there's some kind of higher power at play here. And so I had that going into that relationship. Like, if it's meant to be, it'll be. If it's not, like, whatever. Yeah. And so I just had this real openness to it. And then all of a sudden I'm like pregnant, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've only just met this guy. I'm pregnant. I've literally just finished, like, I think that year before, I just finished my uni degree, only just started my first like career as an exercise physiologist, and was like, okay, and now I'm pregnant. And then I've, what am I doing? So I was like, we had the talks and the discussions of like, is this the best thing for us moving forward? Do we discuss termination? Like, all of those options. Yeah. Because I was like, it was a very big radical thing, and I was still a child myself. Yeah. And then I kind of guess this is where the whole awakening started, was just this piece of trust. Like, I kind of really said to myself, if it's meant to be, like, this child will come into the world, we'll make it work, like it'll be fine. Yeah. And so I kind of just had that in my mind. But before we did that, there was actually this doctor. We went to me and Jake were like, oh, we'll go to this doctor and we'll see, like, we'll discuss options and see what's available and all of the things. And we get there, and he was, God bless him, he was such a beautiful older gentleman, and he was just like, congratulations, being a parent is the most wonderful thing. And we were like, oh, we don't know if we were gonna like, we didn't have the heart to say that we were there to talk options. Yes. But he was like, what a wonderful gift. And it was just like, it was meant to be, as if like this child was always meant to come through. And having that doctor
blessing.
Yeah, like it's just divine. Like, I just got goosebumps then as well. Like, it was all just divinely led. And so we ended up having our beautiful Charlie. So Charlie is now about to turn 7 in September. Oh, and like, it was this beautiful, having him, I guess, was where I really started to step into trusting my intuition. Yeah. And I'm already the type of person, and again, like, this is coming more out of me now, but I generally didn't really do well with being told what to do or people's unsolicited advice.
Really?
Yeah. So, being this young mother who is very impressionable, and people are, oh, do this and do, and, and all of the stuff coming at you. And I guess I was really blessed and lucky that I was still really tapped into my intuition, although probably not knowing as much at the time. But I was really just like, that doesn't sit well with me. Whereas I think some people, if they're not in that power, could be really impressionable, and it could have changed dramatically with all of the outcomes, whether it's birth and, early motherhood and all that things. But I think I really trusted myself. I was like, I want a natural birth. I want intervention free, managed to nail that within the hospital system, which apparently I hear is very rare in the hospital system for a first-time mother.
So what was that? Can you just say that again? Because I didn't understand.
How quickly you birthed Charlie? It was only 6 hours?
No, so it was, his birth was natural, intervention free. I think I was in and out of there from I got in at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then I had him at 12 o'clock. So it was a quick, fast labor, drug-free, all of the things basically. You know, physiological birth. And apparently that's quite rare for a first-time mother in a hospital.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't
Charlie's quite obviously a beautiful soul himself.
Yeah. And so, you know, then going through that and then kind of being like, wow, I did that. Like I birthed this child on my own terms. Like I didn't let anyone tell me, you know, this or that. I really stuck to my guns. I was like, I'm not having pain relief. I'm not, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that was probably more from an egoic perspective, hindsight, looking back. But yeah, so that was like, you know, that really first initiation of like, okay, now you have to start to be an adult. And really from that, I was like, I have to really just trust my intuition in motherhood and, you know, just start following the pieces with that. And then obviously being so young and not having my life or financial stability, I had to pretty much rush straight back to work once my maternity leave ran out. And then so I was working as an exercise physiologist, which at the time, you know, it was a good career. I really enjoyed working with people and things like that. But even from the early on point, I kind of knew there was always more. But at the same time, like I just played comfortable. I was like, I've just done this uni degree, you know, this is my career now and it's supporting our family, and really got stuck into that as we were young parents and just kind of finding our feet. And so I probably held on to that career for way longer than I needed to. And I literally only just, so up until last week, I still had, so, you know, we were on the Gold Coast and then we moved to the Sunshine Coast when Charlie was 2.5. And then I started my business there. And I only just let go of that business last week, literally last week. So I held on to it. I worked for it when I was pregnant with her. And like the universe through COVID, through all of the things was like, get away, you know, they made the no jab, no work kind of thing. But I worked for myself. So I managed to somehow navigate that period, even though the universe was kind of being like, get away, like this is not for you. This is not for you. And I was just holding on for death grip, I guess, for dear life. And then it wasn't until, you know, I had Daisy that I was like, I can't go back to this. Like, I can't leave this little soul. Like, I need to be able to work around her. And really, like that career, I couldn't do that. Like, you know, I'd have to put her into childcare and I'd have to be away from her. So I was like, how can I now create a life that supports what I actually want and supports her, and I can be there and be the best mother for my children and, you know, not have to rush off like I did with Charlie and, you know, jump back into work. So there's been so many different awakenings. And then with Daisy's birth, I decided that I was going to have a free birth. And so I don't know whether you guys are familiar with free birth or what the difference is between, you know, home birth or whatever it is.
That would be good.
Share for everybody.
Let us know.
So a free birth is where you are birthing without medical assistance. So it's a non-medicalized event. And so there was no midwives. There was, I had support people. So I had a doula. And so a doula is basically there to kind of be your support person for both me and my partner, Jake. And then my mum was there as well. And Charlie was around too. So we had everything set up in our beautiful birth space at home. And, you know, the journey leading into that, like all of the discussions around like, oh, you're so reckless, you're so careless, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I've got this, like birth is such a beautiful physiological, you know, experience. And we as women have no idea how fucking powerful we are. That we actually, you know, a lot of the times, and, you know, this isn't for everyone. And it came back to me at the end of the day as well, after all of the COVID stuff and the hospitals and the changing of the rules, and your partner can come in and they can, you know, they're not allowed in, and there was all this stuff. And I was like, I can't birth a child in that environment. You know, I was really like, the safest place for me, where I feel my safest, is at home. And then I was like, okay, so I'm going to do that. And then, I was like, I actually don't really think I need a midwife. Look at you. You know it, don't you?
Look at you, princess.
And so I was like, I really, after having my first experience with Charlie, I was like, you know, I've got this. Like, I trust my body, I trust my intuition, and I know that, I will be fully accepting and responsible for any outcome that happens in that event, you know. So that was kind of my first awakening, was obviously through the pregnancy and kind of working through, okay, I'm doing this. And then you've got people who are, oh, you're so reckless, what if this happens? And I was like, if that's meant to happen, it'll happen regardless, whether I'm at the hospital, whether I'm at home, doesn't matter where I am. Like, I have this firm believing that, there's some kind of higher power and we're all karmically fated for our destiny in life. And obviously there's free will and things like that involved too, which is a whole different topic and discussion. But I guess, with my background in astrology and looking at everything from that kind of soul involvement and like your soul blueprint, kind of really having that, like, if this soul who I'm birthing isn't meant to be in the world, or if I'm, not meant to make it through this birth, like, it's all karmically there. Like, it's going to happen wherever I am. So I may as well do it wherever I feel safe and empowered. Yeah. And so for me, that's what led me to free birth.
Wow.
And yeah, we had the most amazing experience.
You can tell. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that birth, like, after I came out of that, I was just like, holy crap, like, I had the most blissful experience. I went to my full primal wild woman, and it was just, it just awoken something inside of me that had laid dormant for too long. And it was basically just like, you have so much more within you than you could, ever imagine.
So you get a sense of like a full cellular activation.
Yeah.
As you said, the whole primal. So did you have like a pool or anything like that? Was there water? Or...
Yes. Yep. So we had a funny story about the birth pool. I had this beautiful birth pool set up, and Jake was so proud to be like, I've got it all set up. He had it set up for weeks. So she was a week and a bit overdue in the end. And, he was like, had it all ready, and he's, had all the connections to the taps and everything. And then, when it's go time, I'm in full-blown labor, he's like, the doula's like, yep, start running the bath, start filling that up. And we just moved into our new house literally 2 weeks before we had Daisy. And for some reason, where we'd set up the birth space, the hot water was switched off at the
oh no.
And we didn't know, because this was like a second little dwelling. So we were in the main house, and we'd never actually had a shower or used any hot water up at the other little dwelling. And so when he's trying to fill this bath up, he's like, it's not getting hot, like, what's going on? And so then they're frantically, like, my mum was there at the time, and so the doula's like, look, just boil some pots on the stove, like, we'll just have to try and get it warm, she doesn't need it just yet. But then little Missy over here was coming very, very fast. And so from the time I was in pretty well, I couldn't talk through my contractions anymore. I think I basically would say my labor was 2 hours of active labor and 2 hours of kind of like just walking through, little contractions and being totally fine. But in that moment of when it got really intense and, things really heated up, and then, there was issues with the birth pool, and all I could think about was that I just wanted the relief to get into the water. And that was like, this thing that I was holding on to. And then I remember when the doula like said to me, she was just like, I was in this moment of like really transition. And I said to Jake, I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I need to get either into the shower or into this birth pool. And then I was like, I just surrendered. Like, I just can't. Like, I don't know whether you guys had experienced that in your birth, but it's a very common thing I hear is like, just as they're literally about to emerge, you have this point of surrender of like, I can't do it. I can't go on. Like, it's this. I think you kind of really just have to be in that experience to kind of understand it. And I said this to Jake. I was like, this is what happens. I'm going to tell you that I can't do it, and to just take me to the hospital and to just get it out, and, whatever it may be. And he literally just looked at me in the eyes in that moment. And then they told me, they were like, the birth pool's not going to be ready. So then I just channeled that into sacred rage, and was just, each contraction kind of, my wild woman voice found her way out. And so I really channeled that into that. But then when I had that moment of like, I can't do this, this is the moment, Jake, this is the way you have to try and pep me up. And he just looked at me dead in the eyes, and he was just like, your sisters are with you right now. Like, you can do this. Everyone is there. Like, because we had the mother's blessing, and all of the women who were really important to me came to that. And we said that when I was in labor, they'd light a candle to, give me strength and show that support. So there was that community essence. And so Jake's like looked at me in the eyes. He's like, your sisters are here. Like, channel their energy. Like, he's just like, he was the best support person.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I was like, okay. And then, the rage came out. And then I'm like, oh, I just don't know where I'm at. Like, I don't know how far off I am, because it just got so intense. And with Charlie, like, you know, because there was still a little bit of intervention with the midwives kind of being like, oh, you know, you're this far or this and that, like you should start pushing or don't push or whatever it is. Whereas I didn't really have anything, and I just went really primal and just fully inward. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I don't remember it being this intense. Like there's something crazy. And then in that moment, I was like, oh my God, that's her head. Like within one contraction, like a full crown came out. And I was like,
wow.
okay. And then I just remember there's photos and stuff. So we had a birth photographer. If you go on Instagram, I've actually got a couple of videos, and I've shared my story on my Instagram as well. You out there?
She's part of it all. She's like, I was there, I remember.
Look like Daisy.
Yeah.
And so in that moment it was like this song came on. I don't know if you're familiar. It's called Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah, and so I forget who it is who sings it, but it wasn't even on my Spotify birth playlist. Like I don't know whether when you're on Spotify and you have your playlist, and then when you run out of that, it kind of picks things based on what's there. And so it obviously gone through my playlist, and then that song had just come on just as I was birthing her into the world.
Oh my God. That's so beautiful.
Moment of like, this is your time, like you are so primal, stepping into your power. And you know, it's like, I am a woman.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like there and I'm like, oh my God, the baby's head is out. And I was so shocked, and I was like, Jake, we're having a baby. And he was like, yeah, you've been growing it for 9 months. And I was just complete, like, just, I don't know. It was just, I can't even explain it. This bliss, this ecstasy, this like stepping into your power, like it was just phenomenal. And I was like, oh my God. And then she came out and I was like, we've got a baby. And I just kept being like, my baby. Like,
oh, wow. That's so
beautiful
incredible.
photos and things of like, you can just see the emotion in my face of this bliss, this like relief, like all of the things. And, you know, she came out and she was the healthiest, most amazing little bubba. And she came out with the loudest screams. Like I've never heard a newborn. Even my doula was like, I have never heard a newborn. And I was like, oh gosh, she knows her voice.
She's like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So beautiful. Yes, we're talking about you, gorgeous.
What an amazing experience, and just what an incredible journey to embrace in your full awareness of what you know, what you're feeling, what's happening, what's part of your beautiful baby coming into the world, but just that connection between you all, like your beautiful man staring at you in the eyes and being so present for you, and like Daisy just like so I've arrived. As
you're telling us the story, I'm having all these like flashbacks and thoughts to so many of the other women that we've had on the podcast that are doulas, and you know, and then also around other women's awakening stories around birth, you know, and it's just such a powerful time. And for you to embrace that and be fully present in it, you can just feel the power in that. It's like you awakened something in you. Hold of your own power, and it was all you know. It's so beautiful. Wow.
And so it was just amazing to just, when I fully just surrendered to just like letting my body, like it knew what it needed to do. And it's almost like when I kind of look back on that, I've obviously seen some of like the doula had like her phone videoing it, and then I had a photographer as well, just to kind of refresh my memory on some things. But I literally remember like parts where I was like, I think people speak of like where your soul kind of leaves your body and you're kind of watching yourself from like, it's almost like your remote viewing.
Yes.
I feel like I was literally at that point and I could just like witness myself and just like whatever was coming through, it's like almost like it wasn't part of me either. Like it was this inner wild woman spirit or something that I was channeling that was coming through like with the sounds of my voice. And it was, I don't know, it was just such a deeply like spiritual experience as well. Like it was, you know, physically empowering, but also just that the trust, the intuition, and like something else was coming through as well, and that really awoken something within me. Like,
well, I can't think of another time other than probably the passing, you know, of, you know, I've listened to so many near-death experiences, but I can't imagine another time where you would be that in that threshold of pain and bliss, you know, that, and awareness,
but surrender as well.
Yeah. I don't think there's another time where you could have been any more vulnerable too, you know, and we know that there's power in vulnerability, and you know, I just can't think of another moment where anyone would be in that state.
No, exactly.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. And yeah, so now 7 months on from that, it's like the journey that I kind of came out of that with, like, I'm pretty sure I was like, oh my God, I need to share and show every woman that they can do this. And then I was, you know, going through the motions of like, I'm going to create this course about educating other women. And then I was kind of like, well, that's a part of it. But I was like, that's just for birth. But then I kind of looked at it from a higher perspective and was like, no, it's just about empowering women to own their power and know that they have that already within them. But how do we unleash that? It doesn't necessarily have to be through birth, but, you know, it's just something that only them and them alone can unlock that within themselves.
Yes, so true. That's what we're finding too, that, you know, yours was through birth, but someone else's can be completely different. Yeah. But it's the same amount of power, because we all have our own essence, and whatever it is that we have that we need to awaken inside of us is just for us.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I remember a friend gave me the book Running with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes many years ago, and I just, when I first saw it, it was like a bit of a revelation in a way of like owning that inner wild woman, you know, the freedom that comes with that. And she's coming up a lot again now, and it must be like, I'll say like probably 30 years since she wrote the book. It's been a long time, but the whole rewilding and womb wisdom and everything is just really, I'm getting a flush now like this with that feeling. It's so much, the rawness around it and the energy around it is it's on a next level of consciousness, and like what you were talking about, because you're probably around 20. Are you only 29?
I just turned 30, so
30, wow. So you know, like, it's just the awareness, the consciousness, the space that you're holding, Emma, is just so amazing.
It's just really authentic. It's like just pure. That's the word. The only word I can think of is pure and authentic.
Yeah. And it's funny, a friend of ours, she does shamanism, and she was doing some work with me recently in Narelle, and she channeled through my medicine animal at this moment, and it's a grouchy wolf, which and he's sitting right here, and it's like, I was literally this morning brushing my teeth going and, you know, bringing him through, and just like bringing him through, and just like, you know, I hadn't thought about him for a couple of weeks. I was just like, the energy was really there. When you were saying about your, you know, your Running with Wolves, that song coming on, I was like, the whole liberation that comes with owning that energy of running free, running wild in your truth. It's just incredible, you know. It's as you said, it's so activating for people around you when you're coming from that space. You know, so what you're talking about with what we're wanting to move into with these courses and learnings is obviously going to hold such an amazing energy.
Wow.
I beautiful. Thank you.
Questions relevant. I really do. I've never had this before with our podcast, but it actually feels like the next questions are kind of really irrelevant, because I feel like it's just something in you that needs to share.
I think we're going to run with the wolves. And so obviously you've already talked about that you love astrology. So how long has astrology been with you, Emma? Like, when did that become a part of your life?
Really, I started studying it just as COVID began.
Sorry, Daisy's just like slowly steering the show.
I know.
She's loving this. Yes, I'm loving
this. Tummy full.
I played a part in my mum's awakening. Daisy, we'll have you back in about 17 years, honey bun.
So during COVID you studied astrology, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I was kind of always fascinated by like the star signs, and, you know, just your sun sign and your typical sort of, you know, I guess when you realize once you start looking into astrology, you're so much more than your sun sign. So I guess like I'd had that, you know, in teenage years, but never really did anything with it. But it wasn't until COVID where I guess, you know, it created a bit more time and space to be like, oh, actually, I'm kind of interested in this. So it's something that I really want to learn. So I started to buy some books. Actually, I think in 2019 and 2018, I tried to buy some books and teach myself, but I was like, wow, this is actually a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So I found this teacher who was based in the US, and I really loved her energy and was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to learn this. And then did her level 1, level 2, level 3, and then kind of just like, you know, your self-exploration and continued learning. And yeah, what are we now, like 2023? And so it's just amazing. I feel like too, I've really stepped into more of it now that I've created so much more time with having Daisy as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I could dedicate a lot more time to learning and to just really being in the energies of all of the planets, and you actually embody it a bit more. Whereas before, where I was still working in my, you know, I guess I'd call it my 3D life and 3D job,
Yeah.
that I didn't really have the time or the space to really honor that as much as I wanted to. So yeah, now I have this time, this space. It's just kind of opened up so much more for me there.
Perfect.
Isn't it so funny just listening to you say that, because this came up in conversation with somebody yesterday about how that when you talk about the 3D space, like the work, the kids and all of that, and you feel so contained and there's no time, but it's just where we hold ourselves. And then now you've got 2 kids, one young, yet you have all this space around you, but it's just, and probably feeling more like you've got more space, more opportunity, more aware, like all of it,
More focus.
only because you've lifted that, you know, that your awareness has shifted.
Yeah. And I guess actually just on that too, like I feel even the latest awakening that I've just come out of was literally what I mentioned, where I finally got rid of my exercise physiology business. So like I obviously wasn't working in it since I went on maternity leave in early December last year. And then so I had this other beautiful lady who took over the business and was just running the clients that I had. And, you know, she was doing a great job doing that. And then I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm getting to this, you know, 5-6 months point, like I have to make a choice. Am I going back to that? Like, because that's the safe and comfortable option.
Yeah.
Or am I really just going to run with this new business and start this up and go this way, which fills me up, where I kind of was thinking, you know, to go back there, it just kind of felt depleting of my soul. Like, you know, it's still beautiful work and helping people, but I knew there was just so much more that I had to offer. And so I made that choice a couple of months ago. And then I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And, you know, being a business, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try and see if I can sell it. And I was, you know, approaching some people who I thought might be interested and putting it out there. And, you know, Nellie went through one sense, but then the girl who I was also, who was working for me, I did a little bit of mentoring with her. And I was like, okay, well, you know, what do you want to do? Like I offered her the business first if she wanted to take it on. And she was like, actually, you know, through some of our mentoring sessions, she was like, I think I want to be a teacher. And I was like, okay, cool. So it is. Oh. You good, Daisy? Sorry, she's just pulling something. Oh.
Like, Mom, put me back up there.
Yeah, she's like, I want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, that's great. You found like your calling, that calls to you more. And then so I was kind of like, right, so now when do you want to finish up? And then so it was kind of like this deadline, and it was on the 21st of July. And I was like, okay, yep, cool. And so I hadn't been able to sell the business, and I had this moment of like, I could easily just go and just pick up a couple of days if I really wanted to. But there was something within me that I was like, that's just playing small. Like you can't go back to that. Like, you know, you're going to keep playing out the same patterns. You've been saying for years that you're going to leave and you're going to do all of these things. And it was in that moment that I was like, I just have to be okay. And the universe literally stripped everything to the point, like I couldn't even make any money back on, you know, of the time that I invested into the business. That I come to the point of no return, that I was like, I just have to be okay with just letting it go. And, you know, making sure that those clients get covered and whatever else, and then be fully committed to stepping into this vision of what I am. Because I was like, the other thing was, if I was to choose and go back to that, which seemed like the logical, safe, smart thing to do, you know, everyone's kind of like, you have this profitable business, what are you doing? And so I'm like, but it's not like I just need to let it go. Like it's taking more from me, you know, from my soul essence than what it is putting back or filling me up with, if that makes sense. Like it was great. Even, you know, when you look at like the 3D structures and it's like money and bills and all the things, like why would you do that? And I was like, it was almost like I needed to
Yeah.
message to the universe that like I am serious about stepping into this mission and this work, and I'm not gonna half-ass it. Like I'm all in.
Yes.
And that basically was that moment of like, okay, I'm all in, universe. We're not going back to that. And that part of me has now died, and I'm like the phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing you. And I think for our listeners too, there's a lot of people that are in that place where they know what they want to do, that what spirit's calling them to do, but it's breaking the patterns and the what do we call it? The 3D systems
Yes.
that we're so used to, and being able to go and trust, no, this is where I need to go, this is what I need to do. And I think you only need to have that one, make that one step, and then have something, the universe will give you something little, and you'll be like, oh my God, yes, okay, it's right, but it's just making that first step. It's so hard. Yeah,
100%. And it's kind of like the way that I've kind of seen my life the last few years, it was like I was 1 foot 3D, 1 foot 5D. Like, not that we have to be split into those realities by no means, but it was literally that point of me being like, either go that side or go that side. Like you sometimes can't really, it's really hard to balance the two.
Yeah.
And obviously that's our journey here on life too, is to be able to kind of get to that point. Like we can't always just be up with the 5D and, we live in a 3D dimensional world too. So yeah, it's really interesting, that balance of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and how you can navigate it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And trusting and all of those things, and be able to pay the bills.
Yes.
Yeah, it happens. And it's funny because I've been in the same situation the last few years, and the more I let go, the more like what I work in is what I love. I work with young girls in schools. And the more that I stop putting all my time into marketing it and sending emails and all of that, I'm getting more work coming back. And it's the thing that I'm learning is it's the complete opposite, and everything's back the front and upside down. It's like
it's that surrender.
Yes. And it's like, get out of your way and stop playing the old ways, and let go and trust, and all of those wonderful things that we've always wanted is now starting to come into play much more.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's just like that piece on surrendering and being okay in the unknown and not being able to control everything. I think I'm a recovering control freak, so that is and like the moment that I surrendered as well, I should have added, like, where I was like, okay, I'm out of that business. Jake literally got a pay rise of like $250 a week, and it was like, you're supported right now, like you can make this work. Like don't make it about the money, because like it was just, it's crazy. So it was just like those, like you said, those little bits from the universe that are like, here's just a little bit of incentive, just keep going. Like it's like, you've got this, you're on the right.
Yes. And the other thing that we've got too with I think one of our listeners the other day, the big thing is about asking too.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to remember to ask. It's not going to step in if you don't ask. And it's like, constantly saying, okay, universe, I need this, or can you come in and support me with this? You have to ask, because you have to give them permission.
Yes. And you have to be willing to receive it too. It's like, I feel like if we're not open in that receiving way, like, you can kind of block it through your control and thinking it has to look a certain way. And I know I've definitely been guilty of that, being like, no, but it needs to be like this, and it had to come through this way, and then it will surprise you and come through better than you could have imagined. But it's being okay with that void and the unknown. And I think that's where a lot of us aren't. It's obviously, it's not a comfortable space, but nothing good happens in our little comfortable zones, unfortunately.
No. Well, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle podcast the other day, and he was saying exactly that. This we don't need to hold on to suffering. When we let go of the suffering, that's when our awakening begins. But with every good thing that happens in our life, there's the polarity. So it's not like moving into consciousness stops the surprise. You've got to deal with this now. It's like it's always there, but you have a different way of working with it, or moving through it, or acceptance, or changing direction. The energy is in a different space completely. And I think this is a very potent time. As you were saying before about the veils. Actually, we haven't. When you're saying this, let's go there.
Let's go there. I was just thinking because Yes, we might get you to, because I know the listeners are going to love this, because we've got the Lionsgate portal too on the
Yes.
8th. Yeah.
And the super full moon that started the month, like literally.
Yes.
You know,
What are your
overnight.
thoughts around all of that?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously, like, yeah, we had the full moon this morning, and so last night, like, it was really interesting. I think I don't know if you noticed it on the Gold Coast, but Aquarius and air sign, right? We literally, I woke up, I went outside last night to go and moon gaze, right? And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's really weird. This wind has picked up, and it was the air energy of Aquarius. And I literally went back and looked at the charts, and the moon literally, like when I went out there, it was literally transitioning from that Capricorn into Aquarius. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you can't make that up. Like the element of air was literally coming around. And then today has been a super windy day here on the Sunshine Coast. So I don't know if you guys have had the same, but like,
I don't even remember whether it was windy this morning.
A bit like you, I went out and moon gazed a couple of times. My cat gave me the awakening prompts, you know, to have a little look outside. And there was a little soft breeze. And then literally around, I think maybe an hour before the moon transitioned from into the Aquarius sign, we got a soft rain.
Yeah.
So
and Aquarius, the water bearer, like I mean, it's an air element, but it's still got that essence of water too. And
water's knowledge. Yeah.
I guess like this pot, like I think what we're stepping into right now, and it's been built, and that this is the thing, is I think a lot of people have hyped up this kind of August portal, but this has been a culmination and a building point. I think since we've been coming out of that nodal axis shift of the Taurus North Node and Scorpio South Node, for me directly, like that, I'm a Taurus sun, and there was so much purging and stuff that have been taking place across the last 2 years. Yeah. And so I've really felt that. The moment that we shifted that axis point for Aries North Node and Libra South Node, it's like that energy kind of lifted, and everyone was sort of in this state of like, you know, it's this purge time, this release, and Scorpio is very much about that and needing to kind of let that baggage go, and things have to die, like being okay with letting things die and letting things go for letting new things to come through. Yeah. And so that's kind of like, you know, this build up into this, and then we've had those nodal shifts, and now it's like we're in this supermoon portal, and then we've got in the middle of that the Lionsgate. So it's this really, I think people now can't deny that they're not feeling the energies, like even if they've been living under a rock. Like I've been coming people who are kind of really, oh, astrology is stupid, but they're like, oh my God, what you're saying is so relevant, like I'm really feeling it. I think we're actually getting these energies a lot more earthly and grounded than what we previously had. And I don't know if that's something you guys have experienced as well, but
I think what you're saying is that they're getting more refined. We are getting more refined in feeling exactly what we're being told by the planets and whatever else.
And that kind of like what the Celestine prophecy did. It's like the energies at the moment, it's like more of a red light for the masses. Like, as you say, people who have gone, oh, you know, I'll read the sun sign in the paper, or, you know, I'm Leo, I like to go first, or what, you know, center stage kind of thing. It's changed from that to going, oh yeah, I'm really feeling that when, you know, like someone like yourself, where they'd normally have gone, oh, you're a bit woo-woo, or, you know, you know, they're I think what you're saying more, resonating more. That whole
and that's the energy that we're in. We're literally bringing in these new codes of consciousness through, like, even everyone's saying it, every kind of modality that, you know, you can look into. It's bringing that, or even the prophecies of all of the ancient shamans and all of this, like this is the time we're in, is this mass awakening. And when that even in the stars, and, you know, obviously astrology is kind of my love language. When I look at that and how many new things are ingressing into different territories that we've not experienced in our lifetimes, and there's such mass change, and it's really exciting to see us ushering in these new consciousness codes, and we can't continue living the life that we have been living. And I think this is, like, you know, why you guys have started your podcast about the awakening, because so many people, you know, there's been some that have awoken a little bit earlier than others, and there's some that are just awakening now, but it's like, that's the energy that we're in. And this portal is also just going to highlight and just open that even more. I'm excited to play with that a little bit more.
I want to just ask you about, because we Amanda and I, Amanda's explained it to me a lot because I get a little confused around the whole thing. But this change in the
Only Jenny gets confused because her mind opens up in so many directions as well.
Exactly.
It's not about so like there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah,
The portals are all out.
Are you Gemini by any chance, or have any Gemini in your chart?
I actually don't know. I don't think I do. This is what I wanted to ask about the nodes. Okay, so the North Node moving into Aries and the South Node in Libra. I'm a Libran.
Yep.
So now the South Node is the purging. Is that the releasing of, and the North Node, whatever that sign is what we're bringing in or need more of. Is that right?
Yes. So depending, I guess, like, purging's probably not the best word for the South Node, only because I mentioned that because Scorpio is all about like that purging and that releasing. So when it comes to Libra's a bit more of a softer sign. It's ruled by Venus, right? Yeah. And so Venus has that softer energy about her. So it's going to be coming more in the way of, it's basically the South Node is where we've been and the North Node is where we need to go. Like what sort of consciousness we're ushering in. Okay. So what this axis point of Aries and Libra is bringing us is like Libra in the South Node is kind of making sure that we're not going back to being a people pleaser and, you know, not doing things for the sake of making others feel comfortable.
I just had this conversation with Amanda this morning. I said, I'm going through that, and in a good sense, no fucks given, you know, like I'm now like, I just want to speak my truth.
Yes.
But from
nothing
love,
more to hide.
Nothing more to hide, you know, that's what I was saying to her this morning. So this is spot on.
Yeah. And so then the Aries North Node is really asking us, like, Aries rules the self, like it's the first house, like it rules the first house, and that's our identity and the way we express ourselves. And then it's ruled by Mars, and Mars is the god of war, right? But it comes from that heart-centered, like it's a fire, it's a passion-filled thing that we're fighting for. And so the moment that we actually start to tune inward to what our hearts want and go for that and fight and put everything on the line for that, that's what that Aries North Node is asking us to do.
I can feel that in me. As you're saying it, I can feel that part of me that goes, I just want to be true to me. You know, that's that Aries part.
And Aries as well, like, you know, parts of Aries is about focusing on the self a little bit more. Like some people will say that Aries can be quite self-centered or selfish in an extent. And I guess the selfish part can be more of the shadow of that. But it's really about when it comes from a heart-centered space, like that's the evolution. That's what we need to move towards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm hearing you. And this is that refining that we were talking about earlier. And what's happening out here is becoming so refined, and the little nuances are coming through, and we're feeling those threads so much more. I keep thinking that the name, I keep getting refined. You know, it's like everything you're saying is exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing, the reason why you're probably getting a lot of that refined, retrospect, reflection, we've got Venus, right, which is the ruler of the South Node. She's doing her retrograde. She's doing her 40 days in the underworld, which is basically allowing us to go inward, to come into what needs to be refined. It's bringing that to your attention. You know, this is something that you can't continue moving forward. It's going to bring that up to you. So it'll come, Venus rules, you know, our relationship to self, our relationship to others. It rules what we deem to be beauty, or how and where we experience pleasure, what we're attracted to. So having that go through its retrograde period as the nodes kind of have shifted to, that's this invitation as to what's to come across this next 18 months nodal shift and what we're experiencing. So it's a really beautiful time to, like you say, refine, tune inward, and the energy is so supporting of that. And it's really about, and this is like so funny, I literally got this download of like, you need to, like this portal, like especially on the 8th of the 8th, it's like this portal is the time where you need to communicate to other women that they need to be okay to go and follow their heart and stop people pleasing and start to actually find their desires. What is their desire? And then not actually put, like, you know, when you ask someone like, what are their desires? And they kind of be like, oh, you know, I desire to be this, but they're not actually telling you like the pinnacle of what really, because when we do that, and this is what this whole thing was about, it's like you need to show women that they can actually want that, and you just need to show them how to decondition to actually call those desires in. And it was like this whole thing. It was like, this is what is launching, you're going to do this. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, you realize that Lionsgate's like next week. Okay, cool. So right in the middle of creating and launching that. But it was like, and the timing, and when I looked at the charts, I was like, holy shit, how could I not do this right now? Because there's so much more at play too. We have Lilith in Leo, and I don't know whether you ladies are familiar with the Lilith archetype at all.
Yeah, a little bit. We
Yes.
do, but and we actually had one of our guests recently, beautiful G,
Yes.
has Lilith rising on her ascendant, and then she is one no fucks given shit, baby. She is like,
I was just looking at it. We've had a couple of women on, that are. I every time I think of them, I think of rewilding for women, and exactly what you're the wolf energy and new birthing and kind of thing.
And Joe's appropriately dressed in black.
These women embody that energy, and you just feel inspired when you're around them. And it's very masculine and very feminine energy, and it's so beautiful. And you're just like, oh, I want that.
And she so has a place.
Yeah.
You know, to be respected. Please share a little bit. I would love that.
Yeah. So Lilith is hanging out in Leo as well, and she has been for the last, I think, 6 to 7 weeks. Don't quote me on that. Again, I feel like time and space is just like, it's gone.
Absolutely.
So she is basically really asking us, like, how can we shine bright in our expression, right? And where are we settling in life? Lilith really asks you, are you going to continue to settle, or are you going to step into your desire and step into your power and be sovereign in you? And she kind of can be portrayed as this kind of almost destroyer in a sense as well, but she always comes from a heart-centered place.
Yeah.
And so she's really going to ask us, like, around what is it that you're desiring? Like, where are you wanting to step more into your authenticity, into your power? And it's like on the Lionsgate portal, she is literally coming right conjunct with Venus, and Venus is doing her retrograde. So Venus is going to kind of soften Lilith a little bit and be like, how can we really merge together to get you to step into these desires and own the fact that you don't want to be settling, because what's life if we settle, essentially?
I'm totally resonating with that big time right now.
If we choose to settle right now and how the world is and what opportunity there is to actually move forward and leave all the bullshit behind, it's almost like you're kind of like, you've basically left your body anyway, haven't you? You're not really here present. What's the point? It's like it's the ultimate denial, isn't it, to just really go, okay,
well, there'll be more opportunities, but we've then I know it's like, fuck it, let's all just go right now. But it's like there is the perfect opportunity right now to use this, what's happening cosmically, to support us in like letting go, and
just even to acknowledge in your everyday life that there is something more here.
Absolutely.
That we are a part of something more. It's as simple as that, and it goes way up from there, however far you want to go. That's fair, isn't it?
And so like it's just crazy, this energy. I'm just loving it. It's just, and I can see how everything is unfolded, and it's like you go back to like divine timing and things like that, and it's like, wow, look at where we're at now, and look at what's happening, why we're stepping into the way we are, and you're seeing these women rise, and it's all happening. And obviously it's going to affect everyone differently based on their own soul's expression of their chart and where it's activating and hitting different personal planets and things, and people are going to feel this energy a lot more personally. And I guess maybe that's me. I'm kind of really in this energy and getting hit very personally. And it's like, this is what my soul has chosen. Like, this is my time. This is the time that I need to step up and stand up. And it's all just been divinely guided to this moment. And it's like, it's obviously there's going to continue to be awakenings and things as well. But right now, we're at.
So just on that, what you just said, and how it's hitting each one of us personally differently. Are there any like star signs or any that are feeling it more deeply now than any other time? So I know it's all we're all feeling it. We're all feeling those energies, but what star signs will be feeling it more right now?
Okay, so your fixed star signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, and Scorpio, like the last 2 years you have been going, if you have any, whether it's your sun, your moon, your rising, your Venus, or your Mercury, so any of the personal planets, you would have been definitely feeling this energy so deeply and so personally. And then now that the nodal points have shifted, so now it's going to be, if you've got any Libra, any Aries, or any of the cardinal signs, so Capricorn and Cancer as well, are going to be more heavily infiltrated by this nodal axis shift. But more specifically with the Lionsgate portal as well, if the fixed signs, like you'll have any, whether it's any aspects to, again, the Taurus, the Leo, Aquarius or Scorpio, will be heavily affected by this Lionsgate portal and this opening. But yeah, so now it's going to be more of like the cardinal signs that are going to be experiencing a lot more. And obviously, like, it's shifting and changing, obviously, as the sun and the moon, and, you know, but right now in this sort of period, that's where we sort of come from, more of the heavy fixed chart, and now it's more of that cardinal initiating placements that are going to feel that.
Wow, because the so the fixed signs don't traditionally like change a lot, and the cardinal signs are kind of like the change makers, but in a structured kind of way, isn't it?
Yes, and the cardinal signs, when they
can I just ask on that, just for our listeners, what's the difference? What's the fixed sign and a cardinal sign? What does that mean?
Okay, so I'll break them down for you. So we've got 3 different energies which each of the 4 signs fall under, right? So there's the cardinal, which are the initiators. Now the cardinal signs are what actually initiate the change of season. So like Cancer season begins for us, it begins our winter, and then in the Northern Hemisphere it begins summer, right? And then Capricorn for us begins our summer, and then the Northern Hemisphere's winter. And then Aries season is the start of the zodiac, and that begins our autumn here in Southern, and spring in the Northern. And then what am I missing?
Libra,
that's it. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
Don't forget.
And then Libra is the start of spring, or the spring equinox here in the Southern Hemisphere. And so the cardinal signs are that bringing in of the new energy. They're okay with starting new projects, new things, like the initiation, right? So that's cardinal. Now then the next part is the fixed signs. Now the fixed signs are in the middle of these two. So on one side is a cardinal sign. So if we're looking at the zodiac wheel, right, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Then next to that, we have Taurus, which is a fixed sign. And then next to that, we have Gemini, which is a mutable, right? And then the next sign is Cancer, and that becomes cardinal again. So it goes like that around the whole wheel of 12 until we get all the way back to Pisces, which is a mutable. Okay. But when you kind of see it as that, you'll be able to understand what I'm saying when I speak to Taurus, right? Taurus is in the middle. Taurus is like, they hold things stable. They're very good at holding space because they've got to hold, you know, this cardinal energy on one side and the mutable energy on the other. And then the cardinal, I'm losing my words here. The mutable is like, so the first mutable sign is Gemini. And so mutable is very adaptable, good with change, good at completing things, just kind of tying all the loose ends together to then begin a new cycle, right?
Is that because Gemini's the two? They can do everything.
Yeah.
So
Gemini, yeah. And so your other mutable signs are Sagittarius, Gemini, you've got Virgo and Pisces, that's it. Yeah. I'm like trying to.
Oh, you're doing amazing, because when I had a 7-month-old baby, my mummy brain was still full. And
I know. I'm definitely feeling that. Like sometimes I'll be talking, I'm like, oh my God, that word just like it's evacuated.
Yeah.
So
my breast out the feeding time.
Yeah. So does that make sense, Jo, when I break it down? As to like, so each of the, and that's the thing with astrology, when you understand the patterns and how everything works, it becomes so much easier to understand. But it's really about like, it's overwhelming to kind of see how all these different things, because you know, you've got your cardinal, your mutable, and your fixed signs, but then you also have your fire, your earth, your air, and your water, which are kind of not contradicting, like supporting of those cardinal signs. And then, like you've got your masculine signs and your feminine signs. So there's all these different polarities, and that's just the way that the zodiac wheel is made up. It's all encompassing of all the different energies and archetypes that we experience here on it.
And as you're saying about how it moves around the wheel, but also the seasons, you know, and it all kind of interweaves with you know, it's very quantum because it's a science and a maths, but it's also a spiritual consciousness and the energy, and everything connects in on these little fractal spaces. So there's a beautiful over picture of things, but then you can get so into the
nuances of it all.
Yeah, the nuances.
Yeah,
our favorite
and then we add the cosmos in, and the changes in planets and all of that, which then, you know, wow, so wild.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's an art to learn, and you know, it's one of those things where you're never done learning. Like, I'm always still learning new things about it, and you know, learning about the fixed stars and starting to dive into that, and like that just adds a whole different layer and dimension to astrology as well. And it's like, I'm just forever learning.
Wow. So how would you explain for our listeners, like we're talking about this moon that's starting at the beginning of the month, the Aquarian full moon, and then we move to the 8th of the 8th, which is the Lion's Gate portal. How would you share around that, the Lion's Gate?
Yeah, so Lion's Gate is a really interesting one, and it's very, I think, amongst astrologers can be quite a conflicting topic, because it's called Lion's Gate, but it's actually, so Lion's Gate technically marks the middle of Leo season. It's that 14 to 15 degree point, right? So each, when you're looking at each of the degree points for each of the zodiac sign, they all have 29 degree points, and then it goes to 0 degrees of the next as you move into the next energy. So Lion's Gate actually represents that middle part of the Leo season. But what it actually is more encompassing, but it's not. You're chatting too. Sirius is a fixed star, right? And Sirius, they tracked this in the Egyptian times, and there's the people that reckon that the Great Pyramids of Giza are lined up to when this 8th of the 8th portal hits, the star lines up with Orion's belt, right? With the stars in the sky, and it becomes a really bright star, because Sirius is like it's I think twice as bright as our sun, but it's further in the solar system. And so it actually marks when Sirius is at its visibility in point of the sky in Orion's belt in the Great Pyramids of Giza.
Wow.
And so there's that element. And then so Sirius, like, because this portal really just is allowing us, and Leo is ruled by the sun, and then Sirius is kind of like our second sun in a way. So it's all about this light activation and really embodying as much light as we can within us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really, there's a lot of, and that's what you'll see like on Instagram and stuff, there's a lot of conflicting things, and sometimes people don't put all of the pieces of the puzzle together, and they might just say it's because of Sirius going up to Orion's belt and the pyramids, but it's also the halfway point of Leo season, and the Leo being the sun and the the ruler of our radiance and our light, and giving us those light codes too. So it's like this portal opens up of light codes essentially, and that's the way I kind of like to.
Yes, and I have been seeing, now you say that, I have been seeing some people mention this about the light codes that are coming in, but also the lightness of being, both in the way we feel about ourselves, as in feeling lighter, as in less dense,
yes,
but also the light as in the sunlight, and letting more of that in. I've been reading a lot about this as well. Yeah, so the two different types of lightness of being.
Yeah, and the other thing with Sirius, right? So the fixed star of Sirius, we actually have the sun moves past Sirius in July. I think it's July the 17th or something, whatever the 14 degree point of Cancer is where Sirius sits. So when the sun moves to that 14 degree point, we have the sun and Sirius line up every year at that same time in July as well. So that kind of almost opens this portal. So it's not like that portal specifically opened directly on that day. It's heightened and it's probably at its peak.
Yeah.
But that portal kind of really opens from that point in July when the sun and Sirius make that connection. And that's when it'll start to open us up to that extra light codes coming through.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, it's so exciting. I mean, Joe pulled the ocean card this morning, which always feels beautiful. But there's so much energy around at the moment too about, like, when you talk about light codes, light language, light photons, the plasma, and the healing waters, like the activation through these mediums, just so loud and tangible as well, isn't it? And like that healing that you can literally feel when you step out under the sunlight in the moment at this moment.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I guess like it's beautiful with the ocean card too. It's like that reminding you to ground these energies in, to not be so, you know, we also have to ground these energies. We can't just be up in the cosmos all the time. Like it's about how we bring it into the physical body. And, you know, for us, it's grounding to the earth, connecting with ocean. And then, you know, with the full moon in Aquarius, what a beautiful time it is to cleanse yourself in the ocean if you have that available to you. Like that's where I'm going straight after this. And did a little bit, and today I'll go back and go for a full swim. But yeah, what a beautiful way to help usher in those energies. I love doing that on a full moon because, you know, the ocean's tides are ruled by the moons as well. We're ruled by the moon in our bodies. So it's just like attuning yourself to that energy and being a part of it and experiencing that in your physical reality. And I suppose that's the beauty as well, is how can you actually bring more of this into your day-to-day life, and how can you honor them?
And we have talked about some very intricate little things, you know, today that I'm sure our listeners will be like, what? But, you know, the trick is to keep it simple too, is like you were just saying, like get in the ocean. And, you know, even where Amanda's put her beautiful bottle out last night under the moon and we're drinking, you know, moon water. It's just the little things.
I have
like
my moon water on my altar too.
Like keeping it simple and, you know, don't get too much caught up in it. If something resonates with you, go with it, use it, utilize the energies that are around us at the moment.
And it's the little rituals of things like you say, like, you know, bathing in the ocean or, you know, them going out into the moon, gazing and or, you know, sitting, breathing in the air.
And a Lionsgate especially, get out into the sun. Let the sun kiss your skin. Like that would be the most beautiful way to, if you don't understand any of what we said, like out of all of that, like literally just go and receive the light codes physically in your body from the sun. That's all you have to do. And that's all you have to know. And you'll just feel it. You'll just know. Like,
oh, that's so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And that's keeping it simple too. Now this podcast has gone so quickly. I want to ask one question before we close it out. Because I think it's appropriate.
Because a lot of what we're talking about now, people can visit your Instagram and you're talking a lot more about specific areas as well, isn't it? Like you do that so beautifully. Yeah, it's been really
absolutely. And I know you have a course coming up too, which I want to put on the end, which is like something like, what do you fucking desire, or something like that.
Desires of the goddess.
I did too many F-bombs. It's like, you know, when you actually, it's quite fun.
Yeah. When you go to behave today.
Yeah. And it's like the first sentence is like about no bullshit. If you want to step on bullshit.
It's so good. How do you see the world now, Em, and what do you see next for us?
As in like a consciousness as a collective?
Yes.
I think, like, I believe that we're going to see this continued mass awakening, but I think, you know, there's going to be a polarity to that, where there's going to be people who are going to stay in this current paradigm that we're in, and that's just going to keep the balance of where we're at, right? And I think the right people are going to come into, as you open yourself up and you surrender to these energies, I think we're going to allow that awakening is just going to happen for us as we start to unravel and do the work ourselves. And I think, you know, it's coming back to owning our sovereignty and knowing that when we do our inner work, we're actually helping that of the collective. And that's what I've kind of been really focused on as well. It's like, you know, we sometimes have to not just look so narrow-minded at ourselves, but like the work that we do is actually, you know, cascading out. And if each of us are doing this individual work, like we're beacons of light, and that vibration is going to carry forward and help us shift this consciousness and call in these new energies. But I think, with all of this, and that's the beauty of the reality that we live in, there's always duality. So I think, you know, there's going to be, as much as the lightness is going to come in, there's going to be a lot of the same darkness. You know, it's that sliding paradigm of that we can't have one exist without the other. So I'm a firm believer in that, you know, we are here for both our own inner purpose, but also the mission and the soul collective. And some people will have awareness around that. Like I know myself, like I'm here to help shift this consciousness and start to do that work as well and have that greater focus. But there's going to be people that, you know, them just simply living out their life and, you know, the mundaneness that they're here for. Like that's literally their sole purpose, and that's what they're here for. And, you know, no one is better or worse than the others. And it's just the level of polarity that we both sit at. And I think that it's really, I don't know, I'm kind of still exploring this myself as to like what's to come. But I think that's kind of what comes to mind when you ask me that. Like that's,
It's so interesting because just with what you're saying, what keeps coming through for me and for us, even with the podcast, is that, and I think it's what you were talking about before around the light codes and the activations. I think when a woman or anyone actually is in their true authentic essence, there's an activation that occurs. And you might be unaware of that's happening, but when you are sitting truly in who you're meant to be, you are activating others. And not only that, you're activating things in yourself. And you know, that's been coming out of our podcast, is that we're getting so many people say, oh, I listened to this podcast and it's activated something in me. And it's where we have never lived in that essence before this life, you know, before this time. And there's so much simplicity in sharing your essence to activate others. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think as well, like coming back to that, like you just nailed it, like simplicity. I think coming back to, you know, what our ancestors did thousands of years ago and literally living in harmony with the earth and only giving back and taking what we need, like coming back to those principles and things as well. I think a lot of us are kind of, you know, returning back to that and starting to honor like the women's wisdom and the red tent and all of that sort of stuff is making a comeback now. Like it's, I don't know. Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head when it really is coming back to simplicity, and the simplest things can sometimes make the greatest difference.
Absolutely.
And I think in that simplicity, like before, when you mentioned about here, like your purpose being strongly connected to humanity's evolution and change, and other people more connected, you know, their purpose being in the mundane, everyday aspects of things, and how each is perfect. The simplicity is a incredibly perfect link between the two, overriding amongst both of those. But in our actions, that compassion and kindness, you know, do unto others as you would have done unto you. That is also that, like, whatever your practice is, having that as where you express yourself from the heart space, as opposed to you know, those, you know, sitting in the shadow aspects and not acknowledging, you know, the shadow expression doesn't serve. This is where the shift is really incremental for everybody, because it doesn't serve anybody anymore to come from jealousy or hate or anger, you know, all those emotions which, you know, are there to be expressed, but in a way that not against anybody, not against ourselves. All these, you know, that's the dissolving aspect of what we've been through. And now, you know, these light codes are activating the higher purpose, the higher expression in all of us, whether it's in the mundane or whether it's in the you know, the collective space.
And I think too, like with what you said, it's literally about no, sorry.
That's all right. You take a moment. It's fine.
we are rounding it off very soon, but I want to hear what you've got to say.
Sorry, one of those to say.
One of those mum brain moments. It was just on the tip of my tongue, and I was like, I didn't want to cut you off. And you know when you've got something, So obviously it's gone. It's probably
that
to say right now, but that's okay.
Well, I think it's
I think you've activated a lot in us. I feel like I'm full of energy all of a sudden. And I know that our listeners are going to be, you know, fully activated too, just by what you've shared. And it's so beautiful, and so beautiful.
Can I just ask what your sun sign is, darling?
How about we play a game? Why don't you try and guess?
Oh.
I don't like guessing things. I don't know. I'm going to say the wrong one. I think probably going to say Aquarius.
Interesting.
I know. I feel like it's interesting because this is where the sun sign, you know, but
and
then
the moon is the rising.
The ascendant sign is the person that you meet, and I feel like you've got this kind of like this air energy around your rising sign, like maybe Sagittarius or Gemini kind of thing, because communicative expression that you know, you're just so effervescent, you know, you've got so much joy in the way you communicate, and your passion is there. But I'm also, when I'm saying that, I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if it's Leo or
Taurus.
Virgo, Taurus, you know.
Yeah, well, you both are spot on. Okay, I'm a Leo rising, a Taurus sun, and a Sagittarius moon. So you saw me. Go you, so good.
Well, you're fully living your expression of you. It's an effort. So Leo rising, Taurus sun, and Sagittarius moon. Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And where does Lilith? Do you know where Lilith sits in your chart?
Yeah, so Lilith is in my 8th house of Pisces. So
Wow.
I'm still playing with her energy being there and what that's looking like in terms of my activation there. But it's very much about stepping into more of the spirituality and taking your power back in that space, which I guess I'm starting to work a little bit in that, but I still think I haven't mastered her yet, and I'm still honoring her. And then the other thing is like that sexual desire and passions and being maybe perhaps repressed in that area. So there's still energies that I'm definitely navigating and working with her, but I think she's like, it's not like Chiron, for instance, where that's like you're at round 50 where you have your Chiron return. Lilith, like I'm just I can't quite remember how long her return period is and whether I've had a Lilith return yet. I don't think I have. I'm not sure.
I think it's quite a long cycle. I think it's quite a long cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, so it'll be.
There's so much entwined, isn't it, through astrology? Yeah. And you do charts for people, don't you?
Yes,
which we'll pop on too, because I think a lot of people would be interested into finding out, more about how they can support themselves through all of these energies,
especially from the perspective, the angle that you're coming from, or the passion that you have to share, where you're wanting to empower people. And like it's funny you say about the sexual desires and things like that, because again, with this whole rising of the sacred feminine, balance between the divine masculine and feminine, and the womb wisdom that's coming through just so beautifully at the moment, our sexual expression, the healthy sexual expression and intimacy is just such a big part of that as well, coming into balance and harmony, and honoring our desires around where we feel honored, respected, fulfilled. Receiving and giving in those spaces is just incredible. So definitely 8th house Pisces, you're sitting well for that to explore for yourself, but also then to share for others. So
definitely.
It's been so beautiful spending time with you, Em.
Yes,
thank you for having me. I'm just so happy that it aligned on the full moon. You were like, can you do next week? I was like, yep, I'm here.
I know. I have a funny feeling that we're going to try and scam something to get you on, I don't know, each month or each couple of months, just to chat about what's happening cosmically, astrologically. Yeah, I think our listeners will thrive on that.
That'd be really fun, just to develop more through this.
Absolutely.
It's such a beautiful, like when you're talking about light codes and light language, astrology is such a beautiful language, and it's such a wonderful tool for people to just be able to understand themselves more in a way that
utilize it.
Embrace it.
Way as well, it's like not even just from that understanding point, but just giving them permission to, like, I've read for some women, and as soon as they've been like, oh wow, how did you know that about me? And I'm like, it's written in your chart, like that's what you're here to express. And then they've been like, oh wow, I've got this permission, someone's told me that's like I can do that.
Isn't that funny that we still need permission?
Like it's almost like it's just an activation, knowing those deeper parts of yourself and being okay to be like, oh yeah, I actually can be this or step into this, and it's I don't have to repress myself, and that's literally what I'm here to explore. And it's like, that's what I think is so beautiful, to be able to read for someone and empower them in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's holds a lot of joy.
It does. And I just want to thank Daisy for allowing Mummy to share this time with us.
She's busy at the moment.
Saying bye.
But thank you so much, Em, and
just gorgeous.
Beautiful. We've loved every minute.
This has been amazing. Thank you for giving me the space to express and share, and thank you for the work that you beautiful ladies are doing. I'm loving your podcast and all the beautiful women bring together, and I'm I'm loving it each week. It's just amazing to see everyone's different stories, and there's similar themes, but it's just, I love how everyone is just so different in their own expression of all of that. It's amazing.
Yeah, wonderful. We love it too.
And it's like, as you say, similar things. It's like, because even I keep forgetting to say my podcast brain, not mummy brain, but just before, when you're talking about your career and exercise physiology, and then your experience with birthing, like you're going from the very, like very connected with the body and its function and expression and movement, which obviously was a beautiful part of your own birthing experience and the connection with your own body, but now into the ethers, or the expression of spirituality and cosmos, and that passion of connecting to the collective and what you have to share. It's just a beautiful evolution of awakenings to where you're sitting now, and just at 29 move on to 30. I mean, watch this space.
Look at that. I feel like I'm mastering Saturn now, and Saturn gives you the rewards.
Oh, good.
Oh, yay. Yay. Thank you, Daisy.
Bye,
Thank
Daisy.
you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, ladies.
Thank you. You can hang on if you